Good morning, everyone. Thank you, Roberta. Welcome to you all. It's nice to be here, most of us in person for this pre-session after last year's virtual one. I'd like to begin just by calling on Reverend Ron Robinson for the invocation.
Welcome. It's good to see your faces. For about 170 years, we have begun our year together with a prayer. Wofford is a college affiliated with the United Methodist Church. About 100 of those around the country. You probably know some of the larger ones, Duke, Emory, Syracuse. Methodists went around the country establishing churches and colleges, and they knew the difference between the two. One of the things about United Methodist related higher education is everyone is welcome here, whatever identities you have. So welcome to everyone. And let us pray. At the beginning of a new academic year, we offer thanks and praise for the gift of new beginnings and for the opportunity to learn and to wonder. We pray for professors, students, staff, that this year might be rewarding for all. Be with us as we face the challenge of new tasks, the fear of failure, the expectations of parents and peers, friends and self. In our learning together, inspire us to become engaged with your world in ways that serve the greater good, mindfully and compassionately. Amen.
Thank you, Ron. I guess I'm supposed to say next. Next. Well, first of all, welcome everyone back for the start of the school year. I'm glad we're all together here. I believe we're going to have a fabulous academic year. It's going to be safe and healthy. We're going to have fulfill our mission in a safe and healthy way. I guess actually, before I said next too soon, I was told to make an important announcement, and that is that the traditional opening day picnic has been postponed. So because of the threat of rain and thunderstorms this afternoon. And so we didn't want to put not only any of you at risk, but the ponies at risk because they are the draw. So we're going to schedule a fall festival picnic, apple bobbing, pumpkin pie, pumpkin carving, and ponies. So look out for that. I appreciate it. We'll have a lot of fun by that time. So I want to do what I always do at this time, and that is do a state of the college update and take any questions that you might have. The first thing is, I don't know, does this come out? I'd like to move around a little bit. There we go. Okay. So the first thing is a 5-year plan update. I think it's 3 years ago, the board approved a 5-year plan for the college, and we're entering into our 3rd year, which was a gradual expansion of enrollment to between 1775 and 1800. And with that, a set of construction and renovation projects, and that would basically establish not only our enrollment for the next, decade, I hope, at roughly 1775 to 1800, but also our footprint on campus and our facilities. So the cornerstone of that actually was Jerome Johnson Richardson Hall. That was open last year, 151 beds, 150 beds, first-year students with athletic facilities, baseball locker room, softball locker room, golf room. And that is done, as you know, the Chandler Center for Environmental Studies, an award-winning building. Well, they're both award-winning, I have to say. But that was done last fall. If you haven't been in it, please go through it. It is a spectacular structure. And during the course of the summer, as a gift in honor of their daughter, Jim and Lori McGruffin, donated a fabulous piece of art on the wall in the seminar room by artist Courtney Madison. We'll have a dedication during the fall. The library renovation is complete. You'll meet Dean Roberts here shortly, and she'll have some words on some of the work going on in the library. I know we had some challenges last year, but I think we've made great progress. Renovation of Marsh Hall. It might look the same on the outside, but it looks a lot different on the inside. We spent all summer redoing Marsh Hall, the public areas, the rooms, the piping, the infrastructure, things like that. It really is spectacular. A lot of students whose parents lived in Marsh Hall were disappointed because the parents told them how crusty and grody it was, and it turns out it wasn't. It was really spectacular. We have one more phase of Marsh Hall, and that is to do the bathrooms, all the bathrooms. That will be done next year, next summer. Finally, the renovation of the Campus Life building, the Mungo Student Center. You've seen the first couple of phases, Benjo facilities and the main lobby. The Tony White Theater is being redone into a student-centered activity space. The game room is being redone into a student activity gaming space. And then the Macmillan Theater has been renovated. So we expect those renovations to be done sometime here during the month of September, the latter part of September. If you go to the old intramural field, you'll see one big, beautiful turf field. I was thinking, there's nothing like running around on a turf field. So that turf field is just about done. Bill Littlefield, I don't know if Bill is in here. When I saw him yesterday, he said, we have to make sure people don't drive their cars on it. And I said, well, why would people drive their cars on it? But I guess that's a thing with new turf fields. So it will be for intramural and athletic use. Softball facility, you will see that behind Snyder Field. That will be done late this year or early next year for our new softball program that we are beginning to recruit for and start that in the next year. So we're very excited about that. I forgot Burwell Renovation, that's there too. Burwell should be done sometime late fall. You know, the first floor is done. You can see what the contours of the foyer look like. The second floor is undergoing renovation, and that big box in the middle of the first floor is actually a grand staircase, because we'll have 2 floors of dining as opposed to the monolith like 2001 A Space Odyssey. So that will be done later this fall. That is a complete and thorough renovation of Burwell Dining Hall. That will last us 50 years. So, so those are the projects. I think we're making great progress on all of them. Finally, we did some paving, you know, around the horseshoe and part of Evans. It is maybe during the academic year, maybe during a break, but certainly next summer, we will finish paving all of Evans and Cummings Street. And I'm putting that on the record for our CFO, so he's, and so we'll be basically done. Our physical plant on this campus is in outstanding shape, outstanding shape. Our residence hall stock is as good as it has ever been. It is from first year all the way through 4th year. It is in outstanding shape. Our academic buildings, and we have work to do in Daniel. The Black Wellness Center is on our radar, as well as the Carlisle Wallace House. So there are projects to be done, but overall, we're in really good shape. The last thing I would mention is we did 2 chemistry labs over the past year, a research lab and a student research lab, and that should be done soon if it's not already done. So we're very excited about that. So that's where we are on the construction side of the 5-year plan. Next. We finished a campaign in May, $470 million capital campaign, about 260 of that, well, no, I'm sorry, about 110 million of that or so was for facilities, but most of it was dedicated to scholarships for students and student support and faculty support. That- Our advancement team, our development team in athletics, all of you, everyone did an outstanding job in bringing this to fruition. This is a stunning level for an institution like ours, and we should be very proud of that. As I said last spring when I went around after the gift from Jerry Richardson, this takes time to flow through, right? Lots of these are 5-year commitments that are paid out over 5 years. Our endowment has a 20-quarter rolling average. So as these resources flow into the endowment, they gradually come and impact the institution over a period of time. So we'll begin to feel the effect of all of this in the next several years. And so our endowment is now roughly $425 million. When we began the year, it was about $220 million. So as we begin this academic year, we are a different institution than we were on January 1st. I'm going to talk about that in a moment and what it means and how we think about it, but it is extraordinary. It's an extraordinary opportunity for all of us to think about Wofford College, not only today, but the future of the institution. We are able to do things, we're able to match fulfill, I should say, our aspirations in ways that might have been very difficult to do not so long ago. So very happy about that. Next. So summer at Wofford was a great summer. Every summer is great. That's what I've come to learn. The Panthers had their camp. I don't know if they're coming back next year, but I would not be surprised if they were. I don't think their facility in Rock Hill is due to open until 2023. So I expect them back next year. I think our facilities team and managers, construction managers did outstanding work all summer. The grounds crew, the facilities folks, to make sure everything was ready. Buildings were ready, rooms were ready, all the facilities were ready, not only for summer classes and summer residence for students, but also for the Panthers, and then the quick turnaround to get ready for this academic year. So, and I think if you go around campus, you'll see the grounds are in pretty darn good shape. So we should recognize all of them for their great work. We did have summer school in person, and we had a great orientation and move-in day. It was a fabulous move-in day. As always, I want to thank the orientation staff for their ongoing work. Everyone who participated in move-in, our campus life staff, our enrollment staff, who made it possible. It was a fabulous day. The parents, at the end of the day, were just thrilled with move-in. But we had to tell them, people are only going to swarm around their cars to unload them once. No more after that. So, okay, next. Everyone is on campus this year. We're full in person on campus. We're nearly full in our residence halls, about 93, 94%, which is where we want to be. So we have flexibility. Move-in and orientation went well, but we're masked when we're inside, unless you have a microphone. 400, it's actually 462 new first-year students who are all accounted for. There was one we were missing, and finally got in touch with that person. And 22 transfers. So we've had a very good enrollment year. A couple of things, I think Brand will speak a little bit about it. but I'll steal some of the thunder. This was the most selective class we have had. About 52% of the applications were accepted on a record level of applications over 4,300. It is the most academically strong class. The academic profile, the recalculated GPA is about 3.77, well, 3.8, okay, 3.8. And it is the most diverse class. Over 23% of the students in this incoming class, 24% of the students of this income, it changes, that was those numbers, of course. 24% of the students of the incoming class are students of color. So it's the most diverse, the strongest, the most selective class. And that is extraordinary, given the fact that we had very few visits on campus over the year. Our enrollment team did outstanding work, and let's thank them for their good work. Okay, next. Okay, during the course of the last year, as you know, we had the JEDI process. I want to thank Christine and Ramon for their leadership of that process. It was an inclusive process. Some of you, many of you here no doubt participated and served on the committee. The board met a few weeks ago and talked about and looked at the report and responded to the report. You should have all seen that in a Conquer and Prevail and a campus message. They affirmed the work of the JEDI group. They affirmed the work of that we're doing on campus. I think they found that the recommendations offered were good and thoughtful, and in many instances, things we were already doing and will continue to do with renewed vigor. So, and the goal as we came out of it was to make sure that every student who comes to Wofford College, every student we admit and comes to Wofford College has access to every opportunity we offer. Every opportunity we offer and every resource we provide. That is our mission here. And if, as I said to some alumni last week, if we don't do that, then we have failed our students and we have failed as an institution. So we all need to be committed. I am, my colleagues are, I know all of you are, to making sure that every student who comes to this college has access to every opportunity we offer and every resource we offer. And that's our commitment. As part of that process, as you know, we announced last January or February, we were going to search for a new chief equity officer, and Dr. Dwayne Pruitt, 95 grad, Emory PhD, who's now at the University of Louisville, will be joining us as a chief equity officer on September 13th. And so we're very excited about his arrival. And for updates and the like, that's our website, wofford.edu/strategic vision. So all of the responses to the JEDI report are there, the board statement and the responses on a recommendation by recommendation basis. So I encourage you to look at it if you haven't already. Next. Okay, masks in public areas, not outside, not in resident spaces. We expect students will socialize this fall. Dean Bigger, is that right? Almost. They started, I could hear some last night, actually. We have decided that if we have instruments that are approved after a thorough vetting by scientists, by the FDA, if we have instruments that are available to us to ensure the health and well-being of our campus community, we are going to use them. Right? We're going to maximize all available tools to ensure the health and well-being of you, our students, everyone on this community. And so we have mandated vaccines, okay, for students, faculty, staff, coaches, everybody. Now we have a long runway. Okay, November 1 is our deadline. But we are mandating it, and we are going to stick by that mandate. Don't know what will happen between now and November 1. Conditions may change, et cetera, But at this point, and until further notice, we are mandating vaccines. So if you haven't got one, I urge you to get one for yourself and others around you. Weekly COVID-19 testing on campus for those who are not vaccinated. And again, updates on our policy and practices regarding COVID-19 are at the website Wofford Together. Next. Okay. We've had some transitions. The first one I'd like to tell you, today is August 31st, and after 24 years, this is Dr. David Wood's last day as Senior Vice President for Advancement. He's going to go and spend time with family. David, stand up. David has been a part of this institution. It's a part of his life, and he has had a transformational impact on it. He'll be missed. In his stead, we are doing a search for a VP for advancement, and Calhoun Kennedy, however, has agreed generously to serve as the interim vice president for advancement. So Calhoun, thank you very much. I'm sure you all know by now that Provost Mike Sosulski, near the latter part of the summer, was appointed the president of Washington College in Chestertown, Maryland, right on the Chester River. He doesn't know this, he's not here, but we're all going to go there en masse and ride the big boat up and down the Chester River, knock on his door. We wish Mike luck, but in his place, Tim Schmitz, Professor Tim Schmitz, has agreed to serve as our interim provost. Thank you, Tim. I'd like to announce before Mike left, he suggested to me, and I agreed, that we name Mark Ferguson the T.R. Garrison Professor of Humanities beginning at the start of this academic year. So congratulations, Mark. There he is back there. Sitting quietly back there. I would have thought you'd run up here. Mike will be running the Freiburg program. Mark will be running the Freiburg program in the spring. One other change, Roberta will talk about a little bit, but Amanda Esbrook, our Title IX coordinator, has moved on, and I'm happy to say that Matt Hammond is stepping into that role as our Title IX, Director of Title IX. And student risk. I know that I can't remember the whole title, Matt, but you get it. You know what it's about. And he'll be doing great work for us and serving the entire community, all of you and our students. Thank you, Matt. Next. Okay, so some of you may be familiar with some of the conversation. I know Joanne Brasington has gone around to different offices and shared this idea. When I said we started this year, or starting this academic year, as a different institution than we started this calendar year, we began thinking, how can we harness this moment? How can we frame what we do in terms of offering students or helping students think about their education as what I would call purpose-driven education? We all know, we're all concerned that students come and they're just picking off one general education requirement after another before they jump into their major. How do we capture their experience here? How do we tie their interim experiences or their study abroad or their research into kind of a coherent sense of purpose? I want them to think differently about why they're at Wofford College, other than just to take a bunch of classes, fulfill general education, graduate, and go on to work or graduate school or medical school or whatever. And so we began talking about it and came up with this notion of Expedition Wofford, because education is a journey. It is a journey. For our students, it's a lifelong journey, but it starts here with 4 years. And what kind of purpose can we talk about here? What kind of purpose? How do we fit what we're doing into this mission? Well, we think about people, we think about planet, we think about peace. And the alliteration is great. So they got to have that whenever you're going to try and market something. But Expedition Wofford, we call it Where Thought Leads, people, planet, and place. Intercultural understanding, sustainability, development, human security. These categories allow us to fit everything we're doing into a kind of a mission framework for students to give some purpose and meaning to how they think about their education. Now, this is very raw, right? It's a framework. And I know Joanne has talked to some folks, some of the responses, well, we need more staff. Right? That's always a response. We need more staff. Or I don't understand, I don't want to change my courses, or we can't change our curriculum. It's not about doing any of that. It's really about framing what we are already doing and the experiences we provide into some kind of coherent framework for students to have a sense that when they're coming here to Wofford College and doing everything that we want them to do in and outside the classroom, they're fitting it into some thoughtful framework and a common language that we can all use and share and embrace in terms of a mission-centered educational experience. I want to thank Joanne. She formulated that after some conversations with folks. And so that's all I got on that, okay? Because what I'm asking you to do is to participate in conversations during the course of this coming semester so we can see how our different areas might fit into this framework. And I asked John Lefebvre, who was doing the strategic visioning work before, and the VIA team to work with Joanne to help steward this process and invite anyone who wants to participate to let me know so we can form a kind of steering group to help shape these conversations on campus. And the goal is to come up with a framework. How do our classes fit into these categories? What does it mean if a student is interested in sustainability? How might their classes fit into a framework where they can tie their research, their study abroad, interim work, et cetera, into some kind of mission-driven, purpose-driven experience. So I want you to be on the lookout. If you're interested in participating, let me know. And I will again ask John Lefebvre and Joanne to help steward this process. So that's next. Appreciation. I want to thank all of you for being here, those on Zoom for being here. I want to thank you for everything you do to make this such an extraordinary place. We are beginning this year, I've said it before, I'm going to say it again, in a unique moment in the history of the college. We have never been more secure financially, which as a president, I know that's very important because it allows us to do the things we need to do and want to do to transform student lives. Our students academically are the strongest we've had. We're the most diverse we've had. And I think we're on the threshold of even greater things at Wofford College. And so I want to thank each and every one of you for making it possible and wish us all an outstanding academic year. And with that, next, questions. I'm happy to take any questions. Okay, this question is about recommendation 1, the board statement on recommendation 1. The recommendation was, I can't repeat it verbatim, but it was basically suggested a new naming system for current and future residence halls, okay? It didn't say anything more than that. And the board said, well, there are a couple of things here. One is those residence halls are honorifically named. Most of them, a handful of them are donorific, i.e. Money was given for them. Number two is we have lots of honorifically named buildings and spaces. I have a whole list of them. And number three is, they grappled with the question of changing just 3 residence halls and not the name of the college is problematic, right? So they grappled with that a little bit. So what they said is, you know what? We don't see now, we are going to expand recommendation 1 and look at a naming policy or naming guidelines for all honorifically named buildings on campus, not just residence halls, but all honorific spaces, right? Because, well, I have added rooms as well. So all honorific spaces, a new naming policy for honorific spaces. So that's number 1. And number 2 is, they have to grapple with, and I know the committee did also grapple with the notion of Ben Wofford versus the residence halls. And they thought this required actually a more full examination of history and be able to come up with an honorific naming policy for buildings and spaces that also tied into a comprehensive, honest, thorough retelling of the college's history. So that they actually combined recommendation 1, I think, with 4 and 5 to wrap it all up, and included memorialization. How do we memorialize our past in different ways? So that was their plan. And they're going to appoint an ad hoc committee. I know they're waiting till after Labor Day and after we started to begin working on that.
All right, next slide. In marketing and communications, we have worked really hard over the past year to restructure so that we can serve the college better. And that means we've hired 2 new employees. One is Bob Dalton. He is our new writer and editor, and you'll find out why we just hired him to replace someone on the next slide. And Jeremy Powers, who is hopefully familiar to some of you. Jeremy is a 2021 Wofford College graduate, and he is our new video and digital communications specialist. And that's something we really discovered that we needed over the past year and a half. We could have stood a videographer, but we didn't have one. Now we have Jeremy, so we have the best. Next slide. Bob is here because Dudley Brown has been promoted to Director of Communications. He is outstanding. And he and Kevin Huffman, who is the new digital director, worked incredibly hard during the pandemic to make sure we got messages out to everyone and got the website updated. So join me in congratulating them.
Good morning. For advancement, we have a couple of new, I guess quasi new, they kind of started during COVID, but I want to introduce a few folks and some new people and a promotion or 2. So our first is Lucy Woodhouse, is a 1990 graduate. She came back we hired her right at the start of COVID. She actually helped consult the college when we're starting up our lifelong learning program a few years ago under Charlie Gray, but we're fortunate to have her back. She has kept the program very vibrant during a very difficult time, and I hope everyone gets to meet her, and she will do a wonderful job and is doing a wonderful job for Wofford in our outreach in the community and via Zoom and all kind of venues. Thank you, Lucy. Our next 2 is first is Elizabeth Yarbrough, who was actually, we brought on part-time right before COVID hit as Director of Reunions, which is a major focus of our office moving forward. We had some turnover, and we were fortunate that Elizabeth Yarbrough has stepped in and assumed the Director of Alumni for us. She's a W&L grad. Her husband is a 1989 Wofford grad, and her youngest son, Joe, is the class of 23, I believe, and just left to be overseas yesterday. And a promotion is Molly Merrill, who I think many of you know. We promoted her to Director of Prospect Management as we strive to be more sophisticated, more thoughtful, more proactive in our outreach as we secure funds to keep Wofford moving forward. Thank you.
All right. In business office and facilities, we do have a couple new additions to announce. If we can go to the next slide. There we go. Julian Penuela has joined us in our accounts payable office. Julian joined us in, I think, May on a contract basis, and we are finalizing the paperwork to formally bring him on staff full-time. Julian has been an excellent addition to the office. We're excited to have him here permanently. On the facilities side, a little smaller list than usual because of the hiring freeze that was in place for a while. But Grant Holcomb is my new best friend because he takes care of my HVAC unit in my office. I've gotten to see him a couple times because I keep breaking it. So Grant is here and we will see why in just a minute. And then Antonio Moro joined us again on a contract basis, helped us through the changes we made to increase the cleaning standards on campus as a result of COVID. She was a great addition, and so she's been brought on full-time to supervise the residence hall cleaning. And as alluded to earlier, it was a tight turnaround from the Panthers camp, so I believe they're still actively working, making everything ready to go for our students as they move in. We're turning residence halls very quickly. And then on the promotion side, we did promote Stephen Herbert, who used to be my best friend taking care of my HVAC unit, to the mechanical supervisor over that entire team. So.
Good morning. We have 5 new members of the enrollment team here at Wofford, and it's my pleasure to introduce them to you. Kyra Davis has joined us as an admissions counselor. Kyra is a 2019 graduate of Campbell University. She graduated with a degree in psychology. She earned a master's degree at North Georgia University. Her most recent employment before coming to Wofford was at the Child Advocacy Center here in Spartanburg, and she'll be representing us in upstate South Carolina. Jack Fanning has joined us as an admissions counselor. He's a 2021 Wofford graduate, an English major. His territory is his home county of Horry County in South Carolina, and then every state, Virginia to Maine, throughout the Mid-Atlantic and the Northeast. Mary Helen Garrett has joined us as an admissions counselor. She's also a 2021 graduate, a math major. Her territories will be Greenville County, South Carolina, and the state of Tennessee. Myrna Perkins has joined us as an administrative assistant in the financial aid office. Myrna is a graduate of Bucknell University, and that's also the place of her most recent employment. She and her husband, George, recently moved to this area. And last but not least, Spencer Thomas joined us just after this meeting almost a year ago, but we didn't have a chance to introduce him to you. He's a 2017 graduate of Wofford. He's an English major. His territory is every state chartered after about 1880. Alabama, Kentucky, Ohio, and everything west of those. He's going to be a busy guy this fall. They will all be representing all of you in places throughout the country this year. And so I hope you'll join me in welcoming them when you see them on campus. Thank you.
We have 8 new folks in athletics that I'd like to introduce to you. Stanley Broaden. Stanley just joined us in July. Stanley was an intern with the NCAA when I first got to know Stanley, and he joins us from the Southern Conference where he was the director of championships. Next is Addison Harvey. Addison Harvey is our new director of video services, an East Carolina graduate and worked with the Carolina Panthers. Ellie Green is a Wofford graduate. After leaving us, she did an internship at Kentucky and then was at the University of South Carolina before joining us in January. Carol Rich had been an intern with us several years ago.
left to do some master's work at the University of Florida. COVID hit, and we had an opening. We were fortunate to bring Carol back. He's a graduate of Ithaca as our Assistant Director of Media Relations. Next, please. Tyler Carlton. Tyler Carlton is just joined us in July, and Tyler will be our co-offensive coordinator. He's a graduate of Tulsa and has worked under Chad Morris. He was an offensive quality control assistant at Clemson University under Chad Morris. Brian Bing joins us from the University of Pittsburgh, and he will work with our defensive line, replaces Alan Smith. And Alan left us to become an assistant defensive line coach with the Houston Texans. Van Williams joins us as our head men's golf coach. Van comes from North Carolina State and previously had been at the University of Oregon and Arizona State. And while at Oregon, they won the men's national championship in golf. And then finally, Lauren Edney joins us. Lauren is a Wagner graduate, and she joins us as our assistant women's lacrosse coach. Thank you.
In campus life and student development, we have a couple new new staff, and we have a couple of promotions. In campus safety, we have hired Andrea Ogletree as a campus safety officer a few months ago, and Jordan White just this month as a new dispatcher. Next. And so over the pandemic, while y'all were at home on Zoom with your students, I decided to reorganize the whole division. And so, and then once we lifted the ability to hire staff, I promoted Brian Lemire, who's now the Associate Dean of Students for Student Development and Dean of the Junior Class. And so I had been benchmarking institutions like W&L and others who have deans of classes. And so you'll see on these slides that Beth Wallace, who's for many years done first year programming, is now the dean for the first year class, and Dean Lemire is the dean for junior class. We're not taking over anything Career Services is doing with our students and wonderfully for our students, but they will be serving as resources for co-curricular programming in the residence halls, and will be reaching out to some of you in their work. Next. Ashley Owen, Ashley's here. Ashley is a Wofford graduate and has joined us as the Assistant Dean of Students for Leadership and Fraternity and Sorority Life. So you know if anyone in that position is brilliant and strong and resilient. And she is going to be the dean for the senior class. So Ashley, thank you. Talisha Murphy was promoted from a residence life coordinator position to the director of student activities and director of the Mungo Student Center. Alan Lawless, who was in residence life, was promoted to assistant dean of students for residence life and dean of the sophomore class. Alan is a Wofford graduate and earned his master's at Converse College. Carly Tate used to be a residence life coordinator with us, left to get her master's at Clemson University, and then went to work in North Carolina, and we were able to recruit her back this summer when we promoted Alan. And so Carly is serving as our assistant director of residence life. Nadia Glover has moved from her position in ODI to being the coordinator of community standards, which is in the residence life office. And John Blair in conference services, we're moving conference services within the residence life office. And so we are pleased with all his work, and hope you, when you see him around campus, you'll thank him for all the work he did this summer with camps and programs, and continues to do during the fall for you with all your speakers and classes and special programs. And Matthew Hammond, as President Samhat said, moved from campus life and student development to the Chief Equity Office, and his title is Director for Civil Rights and Student Risk Assessment and the Title IX Coordinator. Please join me in congratulating all these people for their great work.
I realize this is the place to introduce other people in the program, but And I will say a few more words later during the updates phase of pre-session. But I did want to beg your indulgence for just a moment as a sort of means of self-introduction to say something personal. This certainly wasn't the way, if you'd asked me earlier in the summer, that I expected the fall to begin or the school year to look. And I don't mean just the resurgence of the Delta variant and its disruptions, but also for me, the invitation to step into the provost's office. As most of you know, I've been at Wofford a long time, starting to feel like a really long time. I care deeply for this institution, and I'm so proud of the work that we do and the way that Wofford has grown and improved over the years. So many fine people have worked and taught here, so many people I admire, and so many of our students, as a past president would have said, are altogether remarkable. I am both proud and humbled to have the opportunity to serve the college in this way. Really grateful for the opportunity. So let's move on to introductions, the exciting introductions of our new colleagues. Our new Chief Information Officer, Baz Abba. Baz, are you here? There he is. If you haven't met him yet, there he is down in front. Next. Matthew Newton, our new Human and Community Sustainability Program Manager who's living over in the north side. Matthew, are you here? He might not be, but great new addition to our staff. Next. Christine Jardine, International Programs, our Assistant Director of International Programs. Oscar Soto, our Studio Arts Manager here in the Richardson Art Museum. In the Sjandor Tesler Library, Caitlin Walsh, our evening and weekend library assistant. Next. And promoted in the Sjandor Tesler Library, Kenneth Herneman, Electronic Resources and Systems Librarian, Tim Brown, our Instruction and Research Librarian, and Angela Brown, our Circulation Manager. On the faculty side, in the chemistry department, Dr. William McWhorter, Visiting Assistant Professor of Chemistry, who I think is here. Next. In English, Dr. Bria Harper, our Professor of New Southern Studies, and Amrutha Kunapoli, Dr. Amrutha Kunapoli, Visiting Assistant Professor of English. There they are, up there. It took me a second, I'm sorry. In military science, Lieutenant Colonel Matthew Slider, Professor of Military Science, and Captain Isaias Lopez, Assistant Professor of Military Science. They here by chance? Oh, good reason. All right, in Modern Languages, Literatures, and Cultures, Dr. Jocelyn Franklin, Assistant Professor of French, Lucia Aguero, Visiting Spanish Professor, and Paola Lascano, Visiting Spanish Professor. Are they here? There they are. In Government and International Affairs, Dr. Victoria Gilbert, Assistant Professor of International Affairs, and Dr. Christine Bianco, Visiting Assistant Professor of International Affairs. There they are. There's one. Oh. In the History Department, my department, Dr. Jessica Tompkins, Assistant Professor of History. Jess, are you here? There you go. In the Physics Department, Dr. Rudrajit Banerjee, Visiting Assistant Professor of Physics. Is Rudy here? Rudy. In Psychology, Dr. Dane Hilton, Assistant Professor of Psychology. I saw him earlier. There he is. In the Religion Department, Dr. Douglas Clark, Visiting Assistant Professor of Religion. And in Sociology and Anthropology, Dr. Dresden Lackey, Assistant Professor of Sociology. There you go. Hey. That is it for faculty introductions. So we are actually early for our break.
I just want to make A quick announcement as we begin. I know Mark Ferguson might kick us off, but today is Tim's birthday. He was, a week ago, he said he's turning 51, but today he said he's turning 61 after a week in the provost's office, so,
The actual number is 52.
okay. Well, he's just made a year.
Right. Our next speaker is Brand Stilley, our Vice President for Enrollment Management.
Thank you, Tim. Next. Thank you. So I get to share with you a little bit about our new students who joined us Saturday. And as Nave said, there are 462 of them this year, and joining them is 22 transfer students, 263 men and 226 women. That's the first time in probably a decade that we've had more men than women. Our new students come from 24 states and from 9 countries, as far away as Cape Town, South Africa, and as close as Mills Avenue, right here in Spartanburg. Their average high school GPA was over a 4.0. The average recalculated GPA was a 3.77, as Nath mentioned, and that statistic is the best predictor of how students will perform here, and it's the highest in the college's history. We've been recalculating GPAs in the same way for about 15 years in admission now. And so, as Nath mentioned, by some pretty important measures, 24% are underrepresented races and ethnicities or international students. So the best prepared and the most diverse class in Wofford's 167-year history. 44% are from outside of South Carolina. 154 were the captain of a team in high school, and 6 were the captain of 3 teams. 116 are legacies, and we define that pretty generously. If a student mentions any relative who's attended Wofford in their application, we count them as a legacy. 109 are student athletes, about half and half signed athletes and walk-ons. 76 are Palmetto Fellows, which is the highest state-funded scholarship here in South Carolina. 1 in 6 qualified for a Pell Grant, and 1 in 9 is a first-generation college student. 43 attended Boys or Girls State. 41 were club presidents. 39 were student government officers. 15 were editors of a high school publication. 11 earned Eagle Scout or Gold Award through scouting. 11 were valedictorians or salutatorians. 10 were student body presidents, and 7 have parents who work at Wofford. First-year students include AP scholars with distinction, a 2-time national clogging champion, state champions in lacrosse, golf, cross-country, soccer, swimming, football, and ice hockey, a black belt in karate, multiple skydivers, a COVID screener, a published poet, all-state performers in basketball and fishing, a high school All-American in baseball, and at least 2 who recently got their first tattoo. A national champion jazz dancer, the individual state champion in golf in South Carolina, and a nationally certified emergency medical technician. One of our new students plays 8 instruments. Another has published a book titled The Aftermath of Human Impact. Another one of our new students won the talent competition in Miss South Carolina Teen. Another finished top 15 nationally in a business startup competition. Another recorded 196 strikeouts. Another has appeared in multiple commercials. One spent a gap year in Jackson, Wyoming. Another can juggle 4 objects, exhibited in the Mint Museum in Charlotte, is writing a poetry series dedicated to the Mars rover Perseverance, appeared on America's Got Talent, road trip 6,000 miles this summer, was named future governor by the state newspaper, and we're pretty sure they meant that as a compliment. Another lettered in 4 sports as a manager. One student wanted us to know that they attended 2 proms with 3 different dates. Another met Dolly Parton, One was bitten by a copperhead. One student wanted us to know that she loves to dance to Hannah Montana songs. Her roommate's going to be really excited. Another recently took up the ukulele. We probably should have made those last two room together. And another new student tells us that she's had 5 concussions. She's fallen from the top of a tree, was once stung by 14 yellow jackets, and holds the fastest time ever recorded at the local go-kart track here in Spartanburg. Her roommate is the emergency medical technician. I always appreciate sharing with you all some of the joy that we've experienced in getting to know our new students. And I hope you'll be as excited as we are. I hope you are as excited as we are about their joining our community. They have many things to add to our community, and you'll be discovering lots of things that we don't know about them yet. And so I hope you'll look forward to doing that. We are well down the road to recruiting the class of 2022. And again, we'll be calling on you to help with that process. When admission goes well, it includes many folks here on campus, well beyond just the admissions and financial aid offices. And so our role is to introduce prospective students to our community, to you, to the people who are going to have most influence on their experience while they're here. And that's why we call on you. That's why we count on you. And that's why you all are so generous in participating with us in recruiting the next class at Wofford. We have open house dates that we call Discover Days now on September 18th and October 9th. And we'll be calling on faculty to form a panel. We'll try to find a variety of faculty from different departments to be represented on that day. And then the day when we need most faculty is November 6th, which is a Saturday that will interview Wofford scholars. And so we'll be in touch with you about those events, and we hope you'll be able to help us with those things. So thank you very much for your time. And finally, we're up 10% in applications to date today for the class of 2024 than where we were last year with a record number of applications. And so we're excited and moving ahead to 2022. Thank you very much.
Good morning. Well, let me start off by saying how humbled I am and honored to join you this morning as we embark on a new semester here at Wofford. Truth to be told, I have been in higher education for 16 years and information technology for a little over 20 years, but this is my first year in a liberal arts school, and it is quite remarkable. So thank you very much for having me this morning. My name is Baz Abba, and I am the Chief Information Officer. This is my 6th week, I believe. Like Tim, he has been there in the provost office for a week. I have been there for 6, and it probably feels a little bit tougher for him than it is for me. I joined Wofford after working as the Vice President of Information Technology and Chief Information Officer at Grantham University. It is a 4-year university, primarily online. And prior to that, I was in Kansas City, Kansas Community College. Throughout my tenure in these 2 positions, I have joined business units and different function teams across campus to build new systems for one purpose. I am what they call one show pony or one trick pony, and that is user experience. So throughout my time at Wofford, I will be working closely with each one of you as we develop new technical strategies, not to change for the sake of change, but to make a difference for our students. And it really boils down to the student experience. And as I was going through the interview process, I promised not to make any changes. And I would like to think that I keep promises, but I discovered soon after I started working here that we really need to make a quick move on our cybersecurity front. I am sure that all of you are paying attention to what's going on in the news now with ransomware attacks going against universities and colleges. And it is important at this point to look at our cybersecurity and digital risk profile and it was important to make some changes here. It's not going to make any difference for you as end users, but I'm really looking forward to an opportunity to make an impact and protect the digital assets that we have here at Wofford, as the president was talking earlier this morning about the innovation and facilities and the endowment. I think it is also important to pay closer attention to our digital presence online. As I was sharing with Chris earlier, it is crucially risky to think of the physical risk, but it is as important to think of the digital risk. So in the next few weeks, we will be rolling out some software that will be installed remotely on your machines that will protect it against antivirus. Some of them do not have antivirus currently installed. And I will continue to understand the systems and understand your needs and work closely with you to develop a digital strategy that doesn't change the spirit of Wofford, but enriches the experience of students here on campus. And with that, I would tell you thank you so much.
Good morning. So pleased to be with you all in person. I've been here for a year, but most of you at best, we've had a conversation via Zoom. So this is very exciting. So glad to be with you. If you could go to the next slide, please. So because last year was so unusual, even though we had a renovation of the library space, many of you have not seen it in person yet. So consider this your personal invitation. Please come see the renovated space. Take advantage of the classroom. Come get a snack in the cafe. That is one place I have seen a number of you. That did seem to be a draw, so that's good. But we have a number of spaces that have been intentionally designed to enhance the experience of the students. Things that are focused on teaching, learning, collaboration, reflection. And so we invite you to come spend some time in the space, and it is your library. So come enjoy that. I also want to invite faculty to reach out to your liaisons to schedule classes. I can tell you, our librarians are really excited about getting back in the classroom and interacting with your students in person again. You will be hearing from your liaisons with more details, but consider this that invitation to reach out and schedule those class sessions. I also wanted to point out that we are back to ordering books again. We did have a hiatus there. So if you're thinking, oh, I'd love to build the collection, so would we. So we invite that. If you could go to the next slide, please. Bear with me, it gets better. So I felt it was appropriate to give you an update on the status of our recovery from the mold bloom from last year. So if you weren't here last year, you missed an amazing mold bloom, and bloom is a euphemism for sure. So the first step was identifying anything that was too far gone to be cleaned up. That would be an example behind me there. Those things were all eliminated from the collection. It was literally a one item at a time hand inspection of every item in the collection twice. So we were super thorough. If you go to the next one, please. First thing we had to do while doing this withdrawal, if you will, was to control the situation and to stabilize the environment. So what you're seeing here is some of the temporary equipment, and the most important word here is temporary. It has been removed, and I am so pleased. We could not have handled this massive challenge without a great deal of support from facilities. So we are deeply grateful for all of the work that it took to get us to this point. This was a significant investment and time and energy and creativity and resilience. Next, please. What followed stabilizing the environment and removing things that needed to be removed was a cleaning. And when I say cleaning, I mean every single surface, ceiling to floor, and even the air got scrubbed. That's a thing. So we're grateful that things got super clean. At that point, we were able to go back to circulating books, but as you know, if you've been here, we were fetching the items for you. We were doing contactless delivery of books. That is still in place, and I'm about to explain the why. If you go to the next one, please. So the folks that did the cleaning are really good at cleaning. They are not trained in Library of Congress classification and shelving. They did a great job with what they know to do, but even if you make a mistake here and there, it requires a complete inventory of the collection. We also need to do some shifting. We're literally shifting the entire collection for two reasons. One, the mold particularly likes certain areas better than others, so we have some odd gaps. And two, this is a strategic move on our part to distribute the collection to increase ventilation, because that's one of those things that helps to deter mold ever coming back. We don't want that to happen. So there is a shifting project that's happening next. And just to make it really fun, part of the cleanup was removing any plastic covers that have been put on books. And when those plastic covers went away, so did their call number labels for the books, to the tune of about 30,000 books. So we are not only shifting everything, doing an inventory of everything, but we're also relabeling about 30,000 things. So this is me asking for just a little more patience before we let you go in and retrieve items for yourselves. So as you notice, this is all moving upward. So if you'll click one more time. So the long-term goal here is reopening the stacks. We're not quite there. We are well on our way. Things are safe, things are clean, things are available. Just let us do the fetching. So thank you for your patience. We're getting there. Next. So granted, last year was a challenge, and we have decided to seize that as an opportunity. And I wanted to give you just a quick sense of the paradigm that we're using next. So we're doing what's called right sizing the collection. If you'll click one more time. So this is a very thoughtful and strategic approach to working with the collection, thinking of it holistically, everything from print to electronic resources, and saying, how do we best meet the needs of our community? For decades, libraries were judged in really basic and not terribly meaningful ways. How many books do you have on the shelf, and how many chairs do you have for people to sit in while they read those books? Really not exaggerating, for decades, that was the standard of a good library. So as you might imagine, if you're an R1 institution, you win every time. But over time, it became, let's think not only about ownership, but access. So the 1980s, 1990s, we started to focus on access. What can we provide to you? And now the shift is not just what can you get your hands on, how well does it meet the individual needs of your local community? So it's not enough to say we have X number of things. Is it useful? Is it relevant? Is it high quality? Are we keeping pace with the curriculum? That's the standard. It's a much higher standard, frankly, and we embrace it. And we are so excited to be thinking forward. As you might imagine, after last year, we are really excited about thinking about forward growth and meeting the need. Next, please. At the core, the philosophy here is, how do you improve the user experience? As you can see, Baz and I are going to get along great. Same approach here. How do we really focus on meeting the need? Next. Next, please. So just to give you a sense of when we talk about right sizing and thinking about how we can build the collection, these are things that have been added to the collection over the summer. This is just a sampling, but I wanted to give you a sense of what we're talking about. So the first one you see here is an ebook collection. It's 18,000 books focused on diversity, equity, and inclusion. That's one example. Don't worry, you don't need to remember the name of the package, because you're just going to find it when you search for books in OneSearch. They're already there. So that's an example of how we can think, how do we align the strategic plan with the curriculum, with people's research interests, and make sure the collection reflects that. The second one is Jstor. You can see it's about 600 new journals that are being added. So if you're a faculty member in the audience and you're thinking, when will the library finally get the complete Jstor package? That day has arrived. Yes, I was hoping for that. Thank you. This was a significant investment, and we are so grateful to be at this point. So we are completely up to date with Jstor. And then the third one is an example of primary sources that we've achieved through digital means. So as you can see, the real winners in this shift toward this way of thinking are the liberal arts colleges, because it used to be those primary sources we're talking about were at one or two institutions. You had to travel to that institution. Now we can provide it to you with a few clicks. We can customize the collection, really focus on the curriculum and focus on the need. So as I see it, this is the ideal time to be at a liberal arts college. We are poised to really focus on the end user need, and it's exciting. Next. So what to expect from the library this fall? Just a few things to get you updated. First, we have re-envisioned the library's role with FYI. We have a dedicated FYI librarian, and we are changing the way we are interacting with the FYI program, and we're really excited about that. And just so you know, it's part of a larger focus on how we can truly embed library instruction across the curriculum. So we're excited about that. We're still continuing to do the book paging, the contactless delivery for reasons already explained. So allow us to continue to serve you in that way. I promise when we can open the stacks, we will let you know. It will be a very happy day. But in the meantime, you still have access. The library has key card access that was put into place during the renovation, but we hadn't taken advantage of that yet. We will be starting to do that this fall, starting at 8 o'clock. So if you're there from 8 to close, you'll need your key card to get you in. The user-centered collection development is what I've alluded to here. This is widespread. This is not just how do we get past the mold and what we lost in the mold. It is truly a shift in the way we think about collection development, the way we think about collection management. And so there'll be more dialogue and there'll be more sharing, but I just wanted you to know that really is the primary driver when we're thinking about the collection. And then lastly, since many of you still don't know me, I am really open to new ideas. I look forward to hearing from you about how we can better serve the needs of the community as a whole. Thank you.
Good morning again. They're looking very approachable in my sweater. I'd like to thank Lisa and Baz for their updates, and Ann Katcha will be talking about general education in just a moment. But I would like to just take a few minutes to provide a couple of my own updates. But I'd begin by expressing my gratitude to some of the people who have taken on additional work this summer. Michelle Smith has been managing all of our grants in addition to being the controller of the college. Thank you. Ben Bryan. Ben Bryan has taken on the additional responsibility for managing our accreditation work with the Southern Association. I don't know if Ben's here or not, but if he is, thank you. Dan Mathewson and Ann Katcha, of course, in the provost's office, helping me immensely. So thank you very much. We couldn't do this without the two of you and all the help you've provided. So thank you. And finally, Melissa Mann, who is like my external hard drive at the moment, remembering so many things. She's also largely responsible for today, so please thank her. She's up there in the back. As far as actual updates go, I would note just a few items to draw your attention. Kim Rostan and Jesselyn Story have teamed up on a grant from the CIC and the Mellon Foundation called Just Futures, a 3-year grant centered on racial inequality and its roots in local history. We are also planning to continue our partnership with Teach Equity Now. It will be slightly different, a slightly different hybrid model this year, which emerged from the program's efforts to adapt their work to smaller institutions like ours. So their new model is really being developed for us, which is exciting. The college will also be rolling out a new course evaluation tool this fall. Dan Mathewson and Ben Bryan will be providing more information on it in the near future. And this is, I suppose, less an update than a thought, but I'd insert it here. One key takeaway from the JEDI process and the Board of Trustees' response to it was how many of the recommendations could be taken up by the faculty and the college. There are many things the faculty can do with regard to the JEDI process if we choose to do it. So that action is up to us. I'd just like to say that. And finally, and this is very near and dear to my heart in terms of updates, I'd like to report that the Olin Theater has new chairs. For those of you who are new to Wofford, this might not seem like a significant change, but if you have ever spent multiple hours in those chairs, this is really a big deal. So we need to thank Dan Dieter for that. So, all right. Nope, I turned to pages I shouldn't have. More seriously, I've been thinking a lot about the way I've been approaching this school year. And this isn't so much as an updated, just for as much as some thoughts. Despite the pandemic and its dangers, my outlook is really quite hopeful, which for a Midwesterner is a way of saying I'm unboundedly optimistic. As I reviewed the last year in my head, it struck me that despite all the challenges brought about by the pandemic, Wofford continued to thrive. It was hard and tiring, but our faculty adapted and continued to inspire our students. Many of them participated in student faculty research over the summer. More than 460 fascinating new first-year students arrived over the past weekend. And even though the cycle of the school year begins again tomorrow, albeit with our new and exciting academic calendar, I'd like to suggest that we maybe think of it not merely in cyclical terms this time, as just another year. Rather, let's imagine a bit, considering the institution's traditional strengths alongside some of the longstanding shortcomings that both Wofford and the broader society must address and that were highlighted last year. That we also take some of what we learned from our teaching during COVID and that we consider the many opportunities created by the Richardson donation. Maybe all combined, we have a rare chance to reimagine ourselves and this place. President Samhat has called the Richardson gift transformational, and Joanne has labeled the framework for implementing it Expedition Wofford. Let's perhaps consider all this a part of a broader transformational moment. That gift, combined with the talents of the people who work here and the college's capacity to educate and attract, I should say attract and educate wonderful young people, provide opportunities we hadn't been able to consider before now. At a time when the future of higher education often seems so uncertain, here there is promise, especially on a day like today when we welcome so many impressive new colleagues. So I'd like to turn the microphone over now to Ann Katja, who's going to update us on general ed.
Oh, wow, that is from 2008. There are more recent pictures of me, but it's lovely to look back in time. So I want to start by saying that the work I'm going to be updating you on is work that was led. I think of her as the guiding light of this process because she really illuminated the path that people chose to take and created a very big inclusive process to bring people into this general education reform, and that's Trina Jones. So I would not be sharing this with you if she hadn't put in so much work getting us to where we are. And yes, yay, Trina. And because she created such an inclusive process, so many of you were also involved in that through piloting courses, through being on task forces, through just so much. As I put together the document that I sent to you all, I was reminded of all the things that we have done over the past now 6 years, going on 6 years on general education reform and how many of us were involved in that process in so many ways. So you should have received a document late last night. I wanted it to be earlier, but it went out when it went out. That had attempted to pull together what we've done since 2015 around gen ed reform to give you some context. And now I'm just going to kind of briefly go over that in the spirit of it's better to see and hear things in multiple ways in multiple formats, because you're going to be hearing a whole lot more about this going forward as we start voting on a lot of stuff. So our general education process started in spring 2015 with the creation of GERSC, the General Education Reform Committee. This 14-member committee started by gathering ideas and information in a variety of ways. And then in spring 2017, they presented 5 resolutions to the faculty. These resolutions were presented all as pending review and approval by the faculty of feasible implementation means and timetables. That is a quote and a mouthful. In other words, when these resolutions passed, and they all did pass, it gave GERSC the go-ahead to continue working along those lines. It didn't actually make the changes. Right? And so those 4 changes were to make the natural science gen ed requirement the same for BA and BS majors, to change the general education science requirement from what it was, 2 4-hour labs to either 1 hour lab or to to 1 4-hour lab or to a 4-hour lab and a science and context course. 3, while retaining traditional interim courses, open up the January term to allow general education courses to be taught during interim. 4, continue to explore and refine a course distribution model for gen ed. And 5, to explore and define concrete steps for moving towards dual or bookend seminars. And we've done a lot of that. So, though not all of those, all those resolutions passed, but not all have been implemented, or at least not completely implemented. And to help with the implementation, in fall of 2017, the college received a grant from the Mellon Foundation. Now, the Mellon Foundation wasn't just implementing all of those resolutions. It was kind of a separate thing. And what it did was allow us to create grants for the creation of pilot courses in general education during interim, a first-year seminar, which would be one end of the book years, and a senior culminating experience, which would be the other end of the book years. So over the past 3 years, we've been creating and running these pilot courses. And as we're wrapping that grant up, we're going to start voting on those, which is really exciting. So let's go through real quick what's passed and what I'm going to be asking you to vote on coming forward and what the timeline kind of looks like for that. So we have removed the BA-BS distinction from gen ed and moved it into the majors. Very exciting. We have changed the gen ed science requirement on a 4-year pilot basis. So we're starting the 3rd year of that 4-year pilot. Right. So as of right now, the gen ed requirement for the natural sciences is 1 4-hour lab science and either a second 4-hour lab science or a science and context course. Right, but we need to vote on that to make it a permanent change if we decide we're going to do that. We will be voting, and that's where the Science and Context Committee comes in. Not funded by Mellon, the Science and Context Committee has been running a pilot program of courses. So we have these science and context courses, and this committee is pulling together all that information so that we can make a good decision about what we want to do with our natural science requirement. Okay. We will be voting on replacing Humanities 101 with a first-year seminar, and that vote will be happening this fall, after a period of faculty discussion, of course. First year seminar would be one end of the bookends. The other end will be senior culminating experiences. And so we will be voting on creating senior culminating experiences and having that be part of our gen ed, hopefully in the spring. So those are the 2 votes coming up this year. We need to pull together all the information on gen ed and interim, and in some combination of curriculum committee, interim committee, and GERSC, find a way going forward with that. What do we want to do with that? And so that discussion is going to be happening over the next year. And I expect next fall we're going to have something pulled together for that. Let's see, where am I? We need to set up a process for the potential creation of a race and ethnicity requirement. This was one of the recommendations that came out of the JEDI, which faculty can do. And so that's another piece that I'd like to really think about going forward is how do we do that? And then as many of these changes are voted on and the courses in gen ed kind of come into clearer focus, we want to come back and think about our distribution requirements. So within distribution, we've created a social science requirement. We've broadened our history requirement, but there's more that we can do with that if we want to. And so that's really something I think is kind of a next step after these steps I just laid out. And finally, we need to think about how we will assess the changes that we've made and create a process for gen ed reform that is more of an ongoing process based on those assessments. So though our gen ed reform has been a rather long process, it has also been transparent and inclusive. And as I step into my role guiding this process, I do plan to follow Trina's example when it comes to that transparency and inclusivity. I want to, again, acknowledge the work done by so many of you in this process, a testament to that transparency and inclusivity. I might be up here talking about this work, but I'm not the only one who was involved in it or even had a leadership role until now. And I really appreciate all the work that you all have done. Thank you.
Thanks, Ann. As the last part of our pre-session meeting, I have the privilege of recognizing those of our colleagues who were either promoted or tenured in academic affairs in May. And in one case I'm going to mention right now, more recently, I don't have a slide for this, which is my error, but I did want to say, first of all, to congratulate James Stukes, who has been promoted to Assistant Dean for Student Success and College Access. I don't know if James is here, but we need to congratulate him. Next slide, please. Granted tenure, Dr. Bo Christ, Assistant Professor of Computer Science, who's on sabbatical, and Dr. Rhiannon Liebrick, Assistant Professor of Sociology. Rhiannon's down here in front. Jessica Scott Felder, Assistant Professor of Art, and Dr. Amy Telligman, Assistant Professor of Environmental Studies, also granted tenure. Promoted to Associate Professor, Dr. Heidi Bostic in the Department of Chemistry, promoted to Associate Professor of Chemistry. Dr. Courtney Dorrell, Associate Professor of Religion. Also promoted to Associate Professor, Dr. Amanda Matusik, Associate Professor of Spanish, and Dr. Brian Piggott, Associate Professor of Mathematics. And finally promoted to full professor, Dr. Matt Cathy in the Department of Mathematics.